Hi, everyone. This is my therapist interview and summary presentation. So I was very lucky to have the chance to speak to two therapists. The first one I reached out through email on Maps, and his name was listed there. Because I had a hard time really having someone talking to me. So I kind of persuaded him to talk to me, and he's very nice to agree and, reschedule his schedule to talk to me. At the same day, I actually got a referral from one of my friends. So uh, I had a chance to talk to another therapist. So I was like, okay, great. And it turns out to be really interesting because the two of them, I think they're very different. So I heard a lot of different perspectives. So the first therapist I talked to, his name is MT. He's a male. He's currently a doctorate student. He's licensed MFT. He identifies as Asian, and he told me he's a union therapist. He only does integration work, not the psychedelics sessions, and he's based in Denver. The second therapist I talked to, her name is MM. She's a female. She's also licensed MFT, white. She works with prenatal and postpartum females. Uh, she conducts ketamine assisted therapy sessions and integration work, and she's based in LA. The first takeaway I have from these two interviews is the different ideas they have on personal experiences with psychedelics. So, according to MT, he shared his experience of using psychedelics and how powerful that is. And he told me that's his reason coming to the field and using psychedelics in sessions. He told me it's very natural and it's a must for therapists to have experiences of psychedelics. Similar to therapists should have therapy because we need to be in the position of a client. So he's really advocating for that. While for MM, she talked about she never had experiences before, and it's until her training that required her to take the ketamine. So she tried one time, and she said it's also very powerful. Um, but according to her, she said it's not a must for the experiences. What is a must is the knowledge of psychedelics. Especially nowadays, there's a lot of like social stigma. So we have to understand it's not like dangerous as it shows up in many other materials or governmental propaganda in any ways. So I think what she talked about is more on as therapists, we need to have those knowledge and keep learning. I think for me, it's very interesting because I never had experience of using psychedelics or any substances. So I feel definitely like pressured when I finished the first session. But I get what that is like. My understanding is like we need to have the self of the therapist work going on because we have to reflect on our biases and our values continuously. The second takeaway is also about their opinions on, the roots of the use of psychedelics, which is shamanism and in different civilizations. The other one is the Western way of evidence-based trials and trying to use this in the medical models in the future. MT is very advocating for paying tribute to the originality of the use of psychedelics. I think he also conducts research in Asia on the use of psychedelics, and he used the word Polonism to describe how the Western world trying to do, because that can be part of it. And he shared a story about going to this conference on psychedelics, and there's people like protesting, and how the scholars and organizers respond to that. So this is a heated topic, and I feel as we're going on with psychedelics research or therapy, we as researchers or therapists have to pay attention to this. And for she mentioned she acknowledged the roots and the impact of shamanism, and she also see like the Western way of doing a lot of things in the U.S. specifically is more like scientific and evidence-based. And she acknowledged that the differences of East and Western ways of doing things. And she thinks the best way to do this is to found a common ground. And that's how we can move things forward. And for me, I definitely has mixed feelings. I feel strongly, just like MT, while I was reading the materials from the lectures before on how Polonism can be something, um, have an impact on this. I also read some other papers on, we should decrease or not to mention those part of spirituality and all those, and focus on evidence-based research. Like my feeling and understanding is that as this going to move forward, it's really important to pay the tribute to shamanism and where it comes from. But at the same time, it's like what we do or are doing essentially is seeing it from a more scientific way. But it's very important to remember the roots and not to just deny this or teach this part of psychedelics use. Another thing is very different is on safety and ethics. MT was talking about he's more excited to see all those differences and all those opportunities that may bring up to the field. And he said he's open to any types of experiments, such as combining maybe AI into the use or trial of psychedelics, while I think is more focused on safety and ethics. She shared with me about how they had a manual to make sure the procedure is carried in a good way, in a safe way. And also, it's very important, for example, I think Dr. Lapan also mentioned, for the clients to come to the sessions, they will make sure there's somebody like pick them up and drop them off, and there will be people be with them when they are home just to make sure they're safe. And that's something she really emphasized on as a priority. So I sense this kind of different ways these two therapists see the sessions, because MT mentioned he doesn't care. He doesn't care too much about the people's concerns. So I think it's very interesting to show this as well. Something they mention in common is how PAP can be combined with their theoretical modalities. Because for the first therapist, he is more like a Jungian therapist. And he told me he was amazed with all those symbolic meanings that brought up by clients in their sessions after they use the psychedelics, and he can better use the union theory to interpret and to um, make the treatment better for the clients. And the second therapist, she used a lot of inner child work and attachment perspective, and using psychedelics for clients, they kind of get back to the very natural, very original state, just like a kid. So she was able to use a lot of the theories she usually used in traditional talk therapy to move forward with the conversations. So I guess it's very nice if you're using certain modalities, and PAP can perfectly facilitate that conversations. And both of them talk about the way psychedelics work for them is like they remove the stuckness of clients, and they can actually getting some new insights, and they can move forward with their conversations or treatment. The last takeaway I have is both of them mention integration work as the key. Because using psychedelics can only be one part of PAP, and they really emphasize on how, as a therapist or guide, you talk with them after the sessions they had with psychedelics, and then to process what came up in the sessions. That's how the healing really happens, is in those kind of areas. So yeah, that's my 5 takeaways. I feel this whole interviews are really interesting for me, just for the fact I got very different information, but I also feel both of them, their views are valid, and they are really passionate about the work they're doing.